Talking a lot about the Free State, and that's why we're going to continue our discussion. We are coming to you live from President Hotel in Bloemfontein, just turning our attention towards this province, finding out their plan ahead, their roadmap for the next, I say 4 to 5 years, because it is a 5-year administration, but we're well into the first part of the year. So we'll get the plan now that the dust has settled after the elections. We heard just before the break from Provincial Police Commissioner, Lieutenant General Thabethe Mpembe. He's part of the panelists here. Butana Komphela, MEC for Police, Roads and Transport, also spoken. Just before we left off, we heard from Elzabe Rockman, Provincial Treasury MEC. It's the turn now for the MEC for Education, Mr. Tate Makgoe, to speak to us about the road ahead. Matrics did very well last year, top of the class for 2013. How are you planning to sustain that momentum?
Well, Ayanda, let me start by saying that as a cluster, we are a social cluster, and our primary role is to invest in the people. And when you look at the National Developmental Plan, you'd realize that a long chapter or a huge premium is put on improvement of human capacity. And that's why, as a cluster, one of the focus area that we are on now is to make sure that now our ECD sector gets improvement. I mean, ECD sector, especially in our townships, you find that there are a lot of little children that attend these ECD centers. Our interest is to ensure that these children are also stimulated by the time they are there. And then the second priority I think that we'll be looking at is to ensure that children who are in conflict with the law are actually treated as children, so that now they are not helped to graduate into full-time criminals. And that is why the intervention that you see that we have built in Kwakwa. And then when it comes to issues of education, for an example, you will see that our primary focus now is going to be at the primary schools. I'm sure you heard this young lady who was making a presentation here. She's from a township school in a rural area in Tabanchu. It's an English medium school, because we have introduced English medium schools in townships. And you can see that even the performance of Anna, that their performance has actually improved more than any other area. So we actually see that there's a lot of talent in the townships that we have not been untapping. And this is one area that we'll be focusing on, to ensure that that talent of English, talent of mathematics, talents of arts and culture is also actually exposed in our own township schools. If you take, for example, on issues of health, our focus area there is that we now need to teach people to take care of their own health. And therefore, we are investing a lot on issues of health education, because there are quite a number of people who think they are sick when they are not really sick. And if we can teach them prevention, taking care of themselves, avoiding certain foods, and so on, we think our health bill can go down. Mm-hmm. And when you take the issue of social sports, for an example, arts and culture, the main project that we'll be looking at there is the whole issue of social cohesion. Mm-hmm. We want that in the next 20 years, we must have one South Africans. If you listen to radio, if you listen to TV, South Africa still has a lot of people who don't believe in South Africa. Therefore, we want South Africans to love their country. We want to see patriotism. We'll be making sure that now children at school are also taught about patriotism. So social cohesion. We've got specific programs that will be unleashing in the province of the Free State to bring the people together, because we want you to behave like the Americans. The Americans, wherever they are, very patriotic. And I think the second country that's going to be very patriotic is going to be South Africa.
That is good to hear.
Yeah.
That is good to hear. I think also part of social integration is that racial aspect that we will be unpacking a little bit later with you. I just want to also bring in the MEC for Public Works, Mr. Mashinini, to speak to us about infrastructure development, crucial to both issues that your colleague has highlighted, education and health. They all depend largely on infrastructure, don't they?
Ayanda, let me start by saying morning to the viewers out there in the Free State and South Africa at large. I want to start first with the cluster approach and why it is so critical that the cluster approach as a government must work, and all of us must make sure that it works. You know, if you get a human being, a community person, staying in a particular community, that community person, number one, that person, if he goes to work, he must travel. Number two, that person has got children, must get education. That person must have a shelter to stay on, and that person must basically to go and work for his or her own children. Now, the integrated approach, it's so critical that what the departments within government are doing must basically talk to one another. For an example, if I start, you put in, the big problem in this country since 1994 was the issue of how do we address the issue of shelter. And I can tell you, the ANC-led government has made an enormous achievement since 1994. You look at the number of houses that have been built, and it's still building them now. To do what? To make sure that this South African, this Free State has got a shelter. Now, when you put in a shelter, guess what? The person that goes there must have a road. Then you bring in the department that is responsible for roads to go in there. Remember that our people have been denied access. You did not get a tired road getting into the township. You get that. Then you said you get, my colleague here talks about education. You then say, but these children must get a school, and the school must make sure that it is well built and it's able to address that. But what you do in the process, do you know what you're doing? You are addressing a fundamental problem in the country, the issue of unemployment, poverty, and inequality.
And in fact, that's where I'd like to come in and take the questions from the floor. Table number 19, we have Jaco Liebenberg, representing LDSW Chartered Accountants, who wants to speak about the issue of job creation in the province. Jaco, I'm not sure where table is. It's right here in front, so perhaps we could hear from him, because once people have the house and the road and the school, they must have the means to earn money to put food on the table. Jaco. Okay, while we're sorting out that microphone, are you ready to go? Okay, I'm going to get somebody to just assist you there with the mic and perhaps swap it, but it is a crucial issue that he wants to speak on. In fact, just following off the back of that, we're going to be hearing from someone from table number 26, Zenziwe is going to be speaking about farming in the province. So Jaco, perhaps let's start with you. I hope your mic is ready now.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Honourable MECs. I'd like to raise the question, what are we doing in the Free State Province to promote local content from local businesses in our tender processes and procurement from government? Thank you.
You want me to come in there?
Yes, please.
Ayanda, a very important question coming from Jaco there. You know what? As the Free State Government, we then said, in the national call of making sure that we contribute positively to job creation in the province, we must focus on issues, projects that will assist the province in moving forward. But remember, if you look at the Free State generally, you would agree that it is a rural area, and we work around that. The first example, what are we doing? When we look at the infrastructure development, Jaco, in the province, the decision that we have taken, we have said, our focus will be on the contractors in the province. That's why when we deal with the SMMEs, the other focus in the report, the detail, it says we also look at who are those contractors that have graduated and become a full operating contractor, so that we must make sure that we don't get contractors that are coming out of the province. We look at those. We improve that particular skill. That's number one. Number two, just recently, yesterday, we were in Butana. You know what we were doing there? In Butana, we were opening a bed manufacturing company to supply not only the Free State, but to supply the entire country. What a magnificent job. We speak about, as we move forward, we speak about the biofuel, where in Bothaville, there again, it's going to be the contribution of the Free State. How do you contribute positively to job creation? We speak about Maluti Apofung. My goodness. Maluti Apofung, you remember, that's an area of a former homeland. you address the legacy of apartheid, of the past. You address that one. We establish the ECZ there, the economic hub. Huh? Big things are going to come into the province. But you look at the infrastructure, enormous, in the Free State. People in the past used to talk about the potholes. But guess what? You talk about the potholes, you Free State, you move. And MEC Komphela will tell you, you smooth, you drive smoothly. The only thing is that don't drive more than 120.
Okay, I'm going to bring in Mr. Komphela in just a moment, but I just wanted to focus on that area of job creation and economic stimulation so we can package that and move on. Table number 26 is a councillor, Councillor Zenzile. Councillor, if you may just stand up for us and address us right at the back there.
Oh, no, thank you, Ayanda. I have two questions. Firstly, I just want to find out, with the Free State being mostly rural, what are our strategies to assist emerging farmers, especially regarding the issue of land and farms? But also, my second question will be, after a wonderful show, MEC Tate Makgoe, in terms of last metric results, what is our expectation this time around? Was it a once-off achievement, or are we ensuring as a province that we ensure that schools are being assisted, children are being assisted, to ensure that we keep rolling like this? Thank you.
MEC Mashinini, perhaps as a bit of a final word, at least for now, from you. Could you address the first part of the question, and then I'll ask MEC Makgoe to speak to us about the second.
Thanks, Ayanda. Let me speak on the issue of the rural development. In the Free State, you go to the place called Diatalawa. You go there, agri-village. You go there, you must look at it. This thing, you know, one of the things that have been facing us is that as we get into the new dispensation, we focused in the main accusation that says into the urban areas. We tend to forget about the rural places. And what has the Free State done? You go to the rural places, Diatalawa, it's an example as we speak now, what the Free State has done. You go there, you'll get the houses, and those houses have got electricity. You get into the roads, the retired road. Just in the past, we were opening up a bridge there, so that there must be an access to that. The other one that we're working on, it's on Velemina again. That's what we are doing as the Free State. And we don't only end there. We also speak about how do we assist the emerging farmers. I remember there was one farm next to Bloemfontein, whereby we emerge, give tractors to the people to be able, but I must caution. We need people that are passionate, that are committed, people that will not want uma uyikhuluma nesiZulu ungafuni nje kuphela abantu abafuna manathe walodini. You need people that will work and work very hard.
Okay. Just now when you speak about that, I think let me bring in MEC Rockman with regard to that. MEC, sometimes these things of transformation can be open to corruption. I know that it is a focal area this time around, this administration trying to come down hard on the issue of corruption. But I want to bring a controversial public-private partnership to the fore now. It's very closely linked to the issue of farming and developing small farmers, emerging farmers now as well. The dairy farm that made headlines in the Free State, R500 million of taxpayers, I believe it was used in that public-private partnership. It was tipped to benefit small emerging farmers, as I said, and the previously disadvantaged. How far has it gone in doing that? What's the state of play with regard to that particular farm as we speak? Have we reaped the benefits that were promised?
Yes, I think it was a long-term project as it was conceptualized, starting from almost a green area where fields were planted, the cattle were purchased. It's an emerging project that unfolds through various phases. So I think we have been satisfied. We've had a number of visits to the farm, notwithstanding all the controversial media coverage that there's been. But what we have seen on the ground was actual work taking place within the requirements that we set for the service level agreement. And I think we've reached the stage where we then assess to say, let us bring the project back into government through the Free State Development Corporation. And I think we are satisfied with the progress that we have made. But that type of project does not deliver results overnight. You give it 2, 3, 4, 5 years to unfold and to develop. The beneficiaries is a significant part of the project, but they will obviously not benefit immediately. The immediate beneficiation was through the temporary job creations or part-time job creation through the construction phases, the initial planting phases. When we come to the beneficiation through the actual agricultural products, there will be, on a longer-term scale, more permanent job benefits that will accrue to the direct community as well as the direct beneficiaries. But I think it's important that we take into account there's a significant part of our provincial budget that comes through conditional grants. A significant part of that goes towards infrastructure projects. What we are challenged with is to see how we leverage that portion of our provincial budget to stimulate and kickstart the Free State economy. We will be initiating a research project together with our Department of Economic Development to specifically look at the past 5 years. How have we managed to use the provincial budget to kickstart provincial economic growth? Because I think it's an area that is lagging behind. We barely managed 1.3% economic growth over the past few years. We are below the national average of economic growth. And I think those are the issues that we are beginning to grapple with and to see not only through local procurement prioritization, but we also need to address the youth and gender set-asides. I think that's an important component. We are looking at changing our supply chain management processes through a just standalone departmental approach that we want to bring in a cluster approach towards supply chain management. We're also looking at the possibility of increasing the scope of the provincial treasury when it comes to the Office of the Chief Procurement Officer. So I think we are looking at a broad range of new mechanisms that will ensure that the provincial budget benefits the provincial economy. And we have a more innovative approach towards supply chain management to address certain priority areas. But the youth and gender set-asides is definitely a main priority area for this year.
MEC Rockman, thank you very much for that. We're going to take a quick ad break. When we return, I also want to touch on the outstanding bill to Eskom's, a good plus minus 700 million rand. That is a debt that's being owed. I believe there might be a legal bid towards the end of the year. We'll discuss that a little bit later. I also want to bring in the MEC Makgoe to speak to us about education and the social integration with regard to that, representing your social cluster. We'll speak about the issue of racism. We'll speak about road infrastructure and the disappearance of the potholes with Mr. Komphela, and we'll address the issue of crime as well. So you do best to stay right where you are. We'll be back in a moment.